Inclusion and equity overarches everything needed to build livable places where communities can thrive. And I'm going to outline 3 simple stages: why, what, and how. Why do we need to care about inclusion and equity? Because everyone has the right to access goods and services, the right to opportunities to grow and improve, the right to be safe. And this is valid whether it's at home or work or generally in the spaces we live in. This is why it's important to us as transport professionals, as the work we do directly impacts the lived experience on our streets and spaces. Inclusion is also good for business. Countless studies conclude that when systemic barriers are removed and concerns are addressed, society is more productive, operational performance goes up, and general health and well-being improves. Unfortunately, however, systemic barriers do exist throughout the world we live in, barriers which people may experience one or more at any given time when using our streets and our spaces. So, what do we do about it? In order to understand the what, we need to understand the problem, or the gap. And by the gap, I mean the baseline discrepancies in people's lived experiences. At this stage, I want to talk about equity and how that differs from equality. In the top image, we see equality, where everyone is provided with the same tools and opportunities. But this does not take into account the individual needs, which means some people already have benefits that others do not. Equity shifts the focus from equal tools and opportunities to equal outcomes. Once our minds are in this space, we can look to our planning and design process to make sure that everyone can access the benefits or outcomes of the schemes we develop. While this sometimes means giving some people what is perceived to be more, what we're actually really doing is making sure everybody is able to achieve and benefit from the same outcome. This is the fundamental principle in human-centered design. Whether we call them passengers, customers, or primary users, our work impacts people, and we need to make sure their needs are reflected when the benefits or outcome of a scheme are discussed. And how are we to do this? I want you to have a think of how many times you've said to yourself, "Oh, I'd have never thought of that." This is why diversity in the design process is so important to the success of our outcomes. We need diverse teams in planning and design that reflect the diverse environment that we live in. In order to achieve the equity that I mentioned previously, the primary user needs to be reflected throughout the design process. We could easily switch this around. Instead of talking about fostering inclusion, we could talk about combating exclusion. Our teams need to ensure our work actively prevents anyone from being excluded from the benefits of the scheme that we're working on. When we issue a report or develop a design, do we actually ask ourselves, is anybody being excluded from this? If we all agree that the fact that inclusion and equity is good for business, good for communities, and indeed good for everyone, what's stopping us?